This is a second video in a three-part video series on how to draw airplanes, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating the first four steps of the method that I use to draw airplanes, using this Fokker Triplane as an example. The first step is to create a scaffold, and to create a scaffold you need a 3-view drawing. So this is my 3-view drawing of the Fokker Triplane, and I got it from this website here. This is the home page, and there's a lot more really good quality 3-view drawings there, so you should definitely check it out. For the scaffold, we only need to build a scaffold for our side view and for the top view. We don't need to build a scaffold for the front view. However, the front view is actually a really useful reference when you're doing the drawing. To create the scaffold, I create a square reference grid like this, and I just do it in PowerPoint. That's really the best way to do it because you can easily import and size and position the images on top of that reference grid. So you can see here's my top view. It's actually half top view, half bottom view of my Fokker Triplane. And to do the scaffold, what I've done is taken simple geometric shapes. I put rectangles for the scaffold for the wings, a line for the fuselage, and a triangle for the horizontal stabilizer. And here's what the scaffold looks like without the drawing in it. And when you go to transfer this onto the foreshortened reference grid, all you're going to do is basically judge the approximate locations of each of the parts of the scaffold. And you can see here what I have are just my estimates. You don't have to be really precise. It can be, you know, not just a little bit under half a grid or about a quarter of a grid square. That's all you really need to do the drawing. It'll turn out great, so don't worry about doing anything more precise than that. The side view scaffold is right here, and you can see I've got a line for the fuselage. I have a rectangle for the vertical stabilizer. So even though the vertical stabilizer is curved, I want to keep my scaffold simple. That's why I use a rectangle. I use dashed lines to show me the height of the upper wing, the mid wing and the top of the fuselage, the lower wing and the bottom of the fuselage, and then the bottom of the wheels. They're just barely above this grid line right here. And that's what the side view scaffold looks like without the drawing. And I just have to be able to estimate the location of its parts when I transfer it to the foreshortened reference grid. Alright, to do this demonstration, I'm using a software package called ArtRage 4 by Ambient Design, and I'm using a Wacom Intuos 5 tablet. To begin my FRG, I create an oval, and I draw an oval by first drawing the major and minor axis of that oval, and this helps me to create a nice symmetrical oval. Now, the reason that I'm doing an oval to create my FRG is that the major axis of an oval is going to be the length of the unforeshortened side of my reference grid, and any line that I draw through the center of the oval is going to be a correctly foreshortened line. So I'm drawing, the line that I'm drawing here is the center line of my fuselage, and that's the first line that I draw for my FRG. So I've decided what direction I want the plane to be moving in. It's going to be moving from right to left and a little bit away from us. And then I draw these lines tangent to where that line intersects the oval. And those are just going to be the sides of the FRG, and those are at right angles to that fuselage center line. And then I draw a third line through the middle, and that one I just align with those other two. And where that line intersects the oval, I draw two more lines that are tangent to it. And so that creates my top view FRG. So here I'm just finishing out the rest of the grid lines for my top view foreshortened reference grid, and I've removed the oval to make it easier to see. So let's take a look here at our top view. We've got axis for our fuselage and our wings, and we just need the axis, the third axis for the vertical line, and we're going to align that with the minor axis of the oval. So we need to know how to draw or figure out the height of one reference grid. So remember, the major axis is the unforeshortened length of one side of the reference grid. So 1/4 of that is going to be the height of a grid square. So I just figure that out by finding the midpoint of 1/2 of the major axis, and that's the top and the bottom of my side view reference grid. So when I find those points, I can draw a top line through that point. There I'm drawing the top line for the side view reference grid, and then I draw the bottom line for the side view reference grid, and then all I have left to do is to draw the remaining vertical lines, and they're all going to be parallel to the minor axis of the oval. So it's kind of easy. This is basically a 2-point perspective drawing, and I space them out by making sure they're aligned with the grid lines in the top view foreshortened reference grid, and that completes the FRG. Now we're going to draw our scaffold in perspective by transferring it to the FRG. So I start with my fuselage line. You can see the nose is pointed towards the top of the page. Then I do the horizontal stabilizer, and remember, just estimate the locations of the points on there using our FRG. It makes it pretty easy. This is the left upper wingtip, and the nose of the plane is pointed down in this view. And then I'll do the right wingtip for the upper wing, and all I need to do are the wingtips for this scaffold, and I'm also going to note where they intersect the fuselage. This is the lower wing scaffold on the left side. The nose is pointed up, but you can see the upper and mid wing scaffolds are already drawn. So now we'll look at the side view scaffold, and I start by drawing a rectangle around the rudder or the vertical stabilizer. And just remember, estimate the locations of or the size of that square. And then I'm just drawing the dashed lines that show me where the upper and the mid wing go, the lower wing, and then the last line is just for the bottom of the wheels. It goes right above that bottom of the grid line, the bottom grid line there on the side view scaffold. And we've now transferred our scaffold to the FRG and drawn it in perspective. Next, we're going to project the wings and tail into position, and let me just show you what I'm going to do before I do the demonstration. We project the top wing up, the mid wing up, and the bottom wing gets projected down below the fuselage scaffold, and then the horizontal stabilizer gets projected up. That's all we're going to do. So I start with the upper wing. I draw some projection lines from the fuselage up to the upper wing reference line. Then I draw the front and the back lines for that wing and just extend them out probably further than you need. And to find the wingtip, I go from the upper left wingtip scaffold and draw projection lines up, and I note where they intersect those front and back lines for the wing, connect those 2 points, and that's the upper left wingtip scaffold. And you just repeat that for the left and right side wingtips and the other 2 wings. The mid wing reference line, remember, gets projected up, and we complete that wing. Then the lower wing gets projected down to that lower wing reference line, and here I'm doing the lower left wingtip, projecting it down and then connecting those 2 points. And then I'm going to project the horizontal stabilizer up, and if you look in the side view drawing, you'll see that the front of it is actually a little higher than the back, so I'm projecting the front of that triangle up a little bit higher than the back. And the last thing I need to do is just put a little mark there to show me the midpoint of that horizontal stabilizer so I can see where the rudder intersects the horizontal stabilizer. So there's our scaffold with all of the wings and tail projected. Looks a little bit like a Fokker Triplane. In the next video, the third of the 3 videos, I'm going to show you how we go from this to the finished drawing.